this is a line of activity of various kinds. And then what I would look at historical, that is indigenous studies. Our approach at Indic studies is, since India has left the largest amount of archaeological, not necessarily archaeological, and literary, has the largest literary and archaeological heritage, which we are able to study. And also, since the Indic tradition, through the later Hinduism and contemporary Hinduism, is still a living tradition, unlike, say, in Egypt or Mesopotamia and all that, where we don't have that, that we may be able to evolve approaches that can be applied to an indigenous approach to other ancient civilizations, like the Inca and Maya and all that. For example, if I look at Egypt now, what we know is only what the Egyptologists tell us. Okay. Although we have acrimonious battles in Indology or Indian studies and all that, I see it as a healthy sign. The fact is that you have people like me who comes from, who is a Western trained scientist. I mean, my career has been almost entirely in this. At the same time, who was born into the Indian tradition, which is a continuation of a tradition that has existed for long. So maybe this can serve as a prototype for the study of other ancient civilizations. So maybe we can arrive at methodologies based on science and all these things. Okay, and then historical and indigenous studies. But this to me is particularly interesting, and I would invite people, especially those trained in science, because recently I was looking at some excerpts from the Brahma Sutra Bhashya of Shankara and Madhvacharya. There it struck me as a student of physics that the fundamental metaphysical problem of physics today is the problem of reality. Okay? Those of you who have studied quantum physics know that the world is what we measure. That is what Bohr said. Einstein said it is nonsense. You mean to say that if we don't look at the moon, moon doesn't exist? But that's the situation with quantum physics today. What is reality? We can't define. Okay, usually in physics we were taught that there is something called physical reality, and our object is to measure, and through measurements and theories to understand what the physical world is. But what quantum mechanics, the Copenhagen school of quantum physics is telling us is there is no such thing. It can be both a wave and a particle, but the thing is you can only measure particles. And when you measure, the world appears before you, the reality, that is reality. When you are not measuring, there is no world. Okay? So that is the problem of reality. My thinking is, this has been stated rather concisely. I'm not saying that that solves the problem, but the point is, people like Fritjof Capra and others who have looked at Tower of physics, I feel they have just looked at superficial comparison. And we must integrate the metaphysics of Vedanta with modern scientific metaphysics. And that might give us some very interesting thing. That is one of the major areas of research that we plan to pursue. Next one, please. So we can skip this. So what does the Rigveda, can I spend a few minutes on this one?
Yeah.
Another 5 minutes? Okay. What does the Rigveda describe? The Rigveda describes a world in which the ocean and maritime activity play a prominent part. Okay? Its poetic imagery is full of references to ships and oceans. It's not the poetry of a nomadic people from the steppes unfamiliar with the sea. Next one, please. So the translations here are by David Frawley. You can find it. That happens to be my favorite for 2 reasons. One, he's a colleague of mine, a close friend. In addition, I feel that he writes beautiful English. In the beginning, this is the famous creation. In the beginning, there was darkness hidden in darkness. All this universe was an unillumined sea. When the gods stood together in the sea, then as dancers, they generated a swirl of dust. Next, please. Okay, next one. When, like ascetics, the gods overflowed the world, then from hidden in the ocean, they brought forth the sun. The creative sun upheld the earth with lines of force. It strengthened the heaven where there was no support. Next, please. As a powerful horse, he drew out the atmosphere. He bound fast the ocean in the boundless dam. Then came the world and the upper region. Then heaven and earth were extended. Next, please. truth, from the power of meditation were enkindled. Thence the night was born, and the flooding ocean. From the flooding ocean the year was born. The Lord that moves ordained the days and nights. The Creator formed the sun and moon according to previous word. Heaven and earth, the atmosphere, and the realm of light. Next please. The flow of our devotions hasten to him, like rivers free of aspersion. All ecstasies burst into Agni like 7 forceful streams into the ocean. As rain waters, rivers follow their course. Into the oceans like chariots in pursuit of their course. Next please. He who knows the path of birds in the sky, he knows the course of the ocean going ships. This is remarkable. This means the migratory birds, they understood the migration phenomena and its relationship to the seasons, the wind patterns and all that. I mean, that's a plausible interpretation. And then I want to point out that I have not taken all this from the same context. They come from different mandalas. Okay? So the ship of truth have delivered the righteous. Varuna takes us across the great ocean. This is the poetry is replete with oceanic references. This is not the poetry of anyone other than people who are familiar with the ocean. I know it can be argued the poetic imagination and all that. After all, when you look at the myth of Ganesha, the elephant-headed god, that's also poetic imagination, but it couldn't have been conceived by people who had never seen the elephant. Okay? So these people must have been familiar with the ocean. Once again, I thank everyone to come here on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. And now, the people can ask questions. In the meantime, we can try this. Okay, connect. Okay. Yeah. No, I want to show the video if it's.
But later on,
okay. Yeah, so we can leave the floor open for questions. In the meantime, if somebody can bring it. Oh, I thought. Oh, you don't have the thing. Password. Okay. Yeah, please go ahead and ask the question.
Thanks, Dr. Rajaram, for a very informative lecture, giving his opinion on the previous theories and then giving forth his ideas for framework that could be followed to look into these evidences and then come up with other, uncover what could have happened. Anyway, I would like to open the floor for question and answers now. We'll probably have another half an hour or more of question and answers, and we have Dr. Rajaram here to answer any of your questions. So anybody, please raise your hand and I'll recognize you. You can go ahead and ask any question related to today's talk.
Yes, sir? Have I rendered everyone speechless or what? No, I would appreciate any comments also. Please.
Yeah, any questions or comments too?
Please
yes.